Hello, I'm Don Mooers, and I want to welcome you to Montgomery Week in Review. The federal government has passed a new, somewhat comprehensive Education Act that seeks to ensure yet again success for all students. Fred Evans, who comments on this program on a regular basis regarding education issues and so much more, is here to speculate on the impact of these changes on Maryland and Montgomery County students. The Rural Maryland Council will be watching carefully the state budget presentation to see how it will be affected by the governor's plans. Charlotte Davis, the executive director of RMC, is also here to tell us how the council follows the spread of avian flu across the country, as avian flu will have a big impact potentially on the state's poultry industry. Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce has a challenging legislative session ahead. The agenda of the council of the chamber includes business opportunities, infrastructure investment, and economic competitiveness. Ilaya Hopkins from the chamber is here to fill us in. Boy, oh boy, the challenge of securing and training 3,500 election judges, especially when the system is completely changing this year about how we're going to vote, would give any board of elections in this country a pause. Gilberto Zelaya from the Board of Elections is here to tell us how it will achieve, how Dr. Zelaya, especially taking the lead, is going to achieve this goal of making sure that the primary election booths and everything else are staffed during the election, during the upcoming April primary. Fred,
hi
welcome.
Don, good to see you.
So No Child Left Behind
Right.
is now left behind and replaced by a new federal program.
ESSA.
What is
Every
ESSA?
stu-
ESSA?
Every Student Succeeds Act.
Okay.
And we got to give you I think we have to give the audience a little historical perspective. The federal government got directly involved in other ways also before 1965, but that was the Elementary and Secondary Education Act that was passed in 1965.
That was President Johnson trying to even out, get money to those poor schools where districts.
Exactly. And as we know, the power of education is mostly, it's constitutionally from the state, but the federal government has gotten more heavily involved, obviously, especially with No Child Left Behind. And No Child Left Behind, although it has faced a lot of criticism, was, I think, a direct attempt to even out the so-called playing field.
And that was President Bush together with Senator Kennedy. It was a nice Democratic Republic, at least at the beginning.
Exactly,
right.
Exactly. And what's evolved over the last 13 years now, which is unbelievable, 14 now, years, is that folks are very concerned that the states and the local jurisdictions have lost some of their, I don't want to use the word power, but their influence over what they can best do to
Autonomy.
serve their children.
Right.
And so that is one thing. And then the over-reliance on testing, which you see enough articles about in the national and the local news. I mean, every minute. I know I just had 2 daughters recently graduate from high school, and they were just constantly being tested on a variety of different topics, and not only for No Child Left Behind, but also for their basic courses.
Let me ask you this: the ESSA, ESSA, whatever. Do you see this as a improvement on No Child Left Behind to address these issues, or do you see us just sort of mucking around?
I think giving back. I don't want to even say giving back, but giving the states the more autonomy to make effective decisions for their states is a wise decision, because we've got, as I constantly repeat to people who want to listen to me, we've got 16,000 different school districts in the United States. Maryland is very unique because we only have 24. We have the 23 counties and Baltimore City are our jurisdictions.
Right.
You go to Pennsylvania, Ohio, whatever. I don't have to lecture.
So it's town.
Every town has every borough has their own school district. So that gets complicated. Who's leading them? Who's the leader of the schools there? And all those things. Education process is very complex.
So in Maryland, how does it work vis-a-vis a county and the state superintendent and the state board? Will we wait to get some direction from that state body to know how ESSA will be implemented?
Yeah, there is direction from there is the State Board of Education, and we have a state superintendent, but what they give typically without any of the COMAR, I always forget what COMAR means, but that's the basic state laws to guide the school system. Regulations, thank you. And but the local systems then take it from there. And we have to follow within certain guidelines on issues like discipline, educating special education students, and obviously the federal mandates. But the day-to-day operational stuff, the local school superintendents still have a great deal of the authority, unless they do something that doesn't follow COMAR.
And how about those jurisdictions that have extremely diverse population, like Montgomery County, especially with ESL and students, not English being their native language?
There are programs. I know we have been fortunate enough in Montgomery, and based on my history here of seeing the very important demographic changes, we have implemented programs to service, I don't want to say needy, I don't like that word, but communities that maybe have more challenging issues. Yeah. And so we've been fortunate that we have the local funding to do that, but some of the other jurisdictions depend more on state funding, but the state can only do so much.
Okay.
So is this like an unfunded mandate to states and school districts, or do you think that our school district in particular will be able to adapt to these changes within the budget that they're used to getting?
I think that's,
we've got about less than a minute.
Yeah, I think that's what they're going to have to do. What the good side of things is that, for instance, this year, Grad Nation, that's the name of the group, 83% this past year, 83% of American students earned their diplomas that should have. So those kind of things with No Child Left Behind have been successful, and we have to just continue moving in that direction. It's just very, very important.
Does it do anything about addressing college readiness?
Real quick.
Not specifically. That is tied into the whole every student succeeds and to reach his or her highest possibilities.
Well, we look forward to hearing more about this.
Yeah. It'll be interesting.
And thanks, Fred.
Thank you.
Charlotte Davis, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us what's going on with the Rural Maryland Council.
Well, we're geared up for this legislative session. They came back last week. We got the governor's budget yesterday. The announcement came out. We are expecting, we have 2 grant programs. One has been funded, one has not historically been funded. We did receive grant funds for the second one that's going to focus on rural economic development, looking at entrepreneurship, infrastructure, healthcare, and our regional councils. Similar to the Council of Governments, we've got 5 regional councils in the state that support our rural government, so we do support those.
So this being Montgomery Week in Review, explain a little bit about why rural is important here in Montgomery County, because I think a lot of people who live in Chevy Chase, Bethesda, Potomac, Rockville, Silver Spring, Tacoma Park, they're not fully appreciative of what rural means for Montgomery County. So maybe you can share a little bit.
Sure. I mean, what we tell people is, look, everybody likes to eat 3 meals a day. Our rural areas are where we're providing that produce and that food and your protein, and we're also where your energy development comes. So anything from nuclear to coal fire to renewables, these large industrial scale energy projects are primarily located in rural areas. So
okay. And I think Montgomery County, I think very few people understand that a third of Montgomery County has been set aside in the Ag Reserve. What does that mean in terms of the overall state?
Well, for us, overall we've got about 12,800 farmers. In Montgomery County, you've got a little over 500. So it's not a huge portion of it, but for terms of resiliency and food security, you do want some agricultural activity in your community so that, we've got drought in California, we've got all kinds of shocks, we've got also all these trade agreements coming in.
There's a website that people can look at as you're talking. What's that website?
It's rural.maryland.gov, all spelled out. We are an independent state agency, and we're located in the Maryland Department of Agriculture.
I always think of the Ag Reserve as one of our crown jewels, and it was so visionary to set that land aside. What's great about it is it allows us to focus our development and transit-oriented development and smart growth, because everybody benefits when they can have access not only to the food security you're talking about, but the open space and the recreation, and increasingly the ecotourism. Whether it's a grape crushing facility up near Poolsville or bike lanes that people just want to get out and have a safe ride. It's a terrific asset for our county and for the whole state.
I mean, it's providing those recreational opportunities. that we see, and that's primarily what our rural economy is. Outside of agriculture is tourism, also the historical nature. I mean, Montgomery County historically was an agricultural community.
That's right.
So we believe strongly in historic preservation, cultural preservation. We're seeing the disappearance of Waterman.
When I moved here in 1970, to go to Gaithersburg, I lived in Rockville, go to Gaithersburg, ooh, Damascus.
German.
That was
Yes.
like,
German.
that was, Damascus was like going
Far.
to Pennsylvania.
Right. Yep.
And yet we can't think, we're not insulated from what's happening in the broader
Right.
world
Exactly.
and country, and I know you were going to
The
talk.
avian flu.
Avian flu, yes.
Right.
There was a case reported in Indiana this week,
Wow.
and had to destroy, I think, 30,000 birds. We're prepared here for Maryland. We're particularly at risk because of migratory waterfowl.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all the birds are coming down south. They winter in the Chesapeake Bay,
Chesapeake Bay, right.
and they do integrate sometimes with the chicken flocks. I mean, organic chickens do have access to outdoors,
Wow.
and just backyard flocks are at risk as well. So the Maryland Department of Agriculture has set up a response. We haven't had a case reported here yet, but we're operating under the guidance that we should expect a case to appear probably this spring. So they've got a response team set up. In my office, I've got their radios that I'm storing for them. So we're prepared. We believe we're prepared.
Any modeling on what the economic impact of something like that
Yeah,
would
it
be?
could be, it could be devastating for our agricultural economy. Maryland, we're 7th in the nation in terms of poultry production.
Really?
Yes,
Wow.
and then our grain, second product is grain, is corn and soybeans, which goes to feed those
Right.
poultry, all that chicken. So, there's a multiplier effect. So just because, we might lose a few houses of chickens, they have to contain it. So
Right.
within a mile radius, every bird has to be eliminated. And that's
Oh, wow.
yeah, that's.
But luckily, birds, it doesn't take it's not a long cycle
Right, it's
before
a-
they're ready to
Right, there's
reproduce again.
once they neutralize the flock, they'll have a waiting period, and then they'll move on.
We
to
have
the
about
next
30 seconds left. What more do you want to share with us and really making the rural sector alive in Montgomery County?
Well, we're still coming through the budget like everybody else. The governor put in some extra funding for program open space this year, which will go to more land preservation. So we're excited about that. And stay tuned. We're ready for the roller coaster ride.
Thanks, Charlotte. Really appreciate it. We'll be right back after these messages. And we're back. Ilaya Hopkins, welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Chamber, looking ahead, we have a Republican governor who presumably is more business friendly than perhaps people from the other party are. You've got a legislature that is set of all kinds of different folks. But I think your message from the chamber coming into Annapolis is that working together, everyone does better.
Absolutely. What we say at the Montgomery County Chamber is that we're not D's or R's, we're C for commerce. And everybody needs to focus on it because the state of Maryland will benefit when there's more economic activity and we can grow our revenues and fund education and open space and open elections and things like that. So it really is an economic imperative for all of us that
Yeah.
the business community is successful.
One thing I've never heard from a chamber representative in my years is something that was Hubert Humphrey said was the best form of welfare is a job.
Lieutenant Governor Boyd Rutherford said that at our annual dinner in June. And it's true, business is where jobs are created. And in particular, small businesses and young businesses, entrepreneurs and people with new ideas that want to bring them to the marketplace. So as we talk about creating access to opportunity for all our residents, it really is the business community that's going to offer career pathways and ways to be self-sustaining.
Now, well, you're going to be, I want you to go through what your goals are going to be with the legislature, but there's a website and folks can look at the website at the same time as you're talking.
Yeah, it's our chamber website, mcccmd.com. We are a 501c6, which is a business organization, and we're an advocacy organization on behalf of our members. Advocacy, as you guys probably all know, is a long game, so much of our stuff stays similar year to year. What's interesting about 2016 is it's the second year of a 4-year term for members of the General Assembly and our new governor. So it's anticipated that this will be a very active year.
Okay.
There are already 1,500 bills that were pre-filed and usually around 3,000 pieces of legislation that they will look through in 90 days. Our goal is to make sure they focus on things that create more business opportunity for our small and young businesses, make sure that investment is happening in our transportation network, in our education system, in maintaining public safety, and making sure that we're competitive vis-a-vis our contiguous jurisdictions, but also within the country and the global marketplace. That boils down to tax structure, and we're eager to see recommendations from the Augustine Commission that are due any day. They've been taking a very thorough review of Maryland's tax structure, and with a keen focus on mindful of the revenue impacts and the fiscal impact.
We've seen some of the findings leaked out,
Yeah,
or
some
some
of
of
them
these.
got
What
leaked,
are some of the things that you've learned about the Augustine findings?
Well, I haven't seen the draft. It was a leaked copy that I think one of the news outlets got. We sent a long list of recommendations, and we were pleased to see that some of those were incorporated. You know, it's the balancing act, though, and as much as corporate tax rate is sort of a banner marquee, tells the world how a state feels about corporations, the pass-through entities, these are the sole proprietors, the limited liability corporations, they pay the tax at a personal income level, which in Maryland is among the highest in the country. So any net income from a business entity is actually getting taxed at that higher than the corporate rate, by the way. So we're very hopeful that some relief will be in the recommendations for those small businesses. Again, it's over 70% of the business activity.
What about the small, the local levels? I've heard some talk about lowering some of the jurisdictions that have a high piggyback tax.
Right, so the state has a state income tax, and then each jurisdiction, the 24, are allowed to add their own. It's in Comar, it's the max is 3.25, I think, and Montgomery County is at the max. As you all probably know, Montgomery County, interestingly, has a revenue shortfall despite the fact that there's a surplus at the state level. So that needs to be analyzed a little bit more to understand why. So it's going to be hard for our council members and our county executive to lower that rate. In fact, they're talking about increasing taxes, property taxes and others.
Increasing taxes is a real problem in Montgomery County beyond the inflation because of the unanimous vote.
The way
that
that
the
the way it works. You know, it's important to remember, though, with whether you're looking at regulations or taxes, it's that cumulative impact, and it gets to a point where it is a business is not able to be successful. They can't reinvest in the business. They can't hire more people. They can't focus on the job that they want to be doing, whether it's producing products or servicing clients or whatever. So that's what we try to advocate for, is helping them find ways to be successful.
Perfect. That state budget surplus, it's interesting that since we are by far the largest funder of the state, while we have a shortfall locally, but yet we're subsidizing the state. It's amazing. Look forward to hearing the chamber on that one. Gilberto, Zelaya,
Yes, how are you?
Dr. Z. Dr. Z is in the house.
Yes, good day, good day.
So we've had all these great stories that, all these things going on, and now we have a story about how you and your colleagues are trying to ensure that our voting system has people to make sure that it's going to run smoothly in the April primary and then November general election.
Exactly. So we need 3,500 election workers. Yes, it is. It is a long day. I'm not going to lie. I'll be the first one to tell you, because I'm there till like 2, 3 in the morning. But the workers, they're there probably until 9:30, 10:30. We have a new voting system. So the closing procedure is much simpler. Much simpler, and our goal is 11 p.m. results. So we should have everything in-house between 10 and 10:30. But it's interesting, with 670,000 registered voters, you would think that we will have a surplus of volunteers, and we don't. Keep in mind, yes, there's training involved. We have training sessions Monday through Sunday, morning, afternoon, evening. So if Sunday morning works, or Friday evening, or Tuesday afternoon, It's fine. We'll meet you halfway. There are certain responsibilities. You have to be a registered voter in the state of Maryland and at least 17 years of age. The students who are 17, who are still in high school, can earn 25 student service learning credits, or depending on the stipend,
And the 17-year-old, so long as they turn 18 before the general election,
they could
That-
vote
they
as a
can-
17-year-old
they can
in the
vote as
primary.
17-year-olds,
That's
right?
correct.
So that's
Yes.
why the
Yep.
17-year-old is the important.
Yeah, exactly,
number.
exactly.
Right.
Then we have 17 who are 17 throughout the whole cycle,
Okay.
and they could serve as an election judge. We
Okay.
have juniors who serve in the primaries, and then they become seniors in their last year of
There's
high
a
school.
hotline apparently.
Yes, so it's
what's the
240,
hotline?
yes, 240-777-8533, 240-777-8533, and we need a lot of individuals. It is, I tell individuals, it's a short-term commitment with long-term impact.
Right.
Okay, it's 2 days every other year, and ideally when you join the team every odd year, we will start contacting you to see if you're available to serve again. And of course, we're focusing on the primary, but we
And
need
that's
individuals.
April 26th.
Yes,
correct?
April 26th. Yes, April 26th. So it's a great opportunity to give back to your community. It's a good way to establish. It's a great way to network, especially for our 17-year-olds. And all the judges working together on a particular day. It's community. And a lot of individuals kind of, the first thing they say is, I'm busy, but I'm giving you the date ahead of time. So it's April 26th and November 8th.
You have us here,
Yes.
the viewing audience. What can we do to help you? What are the audiences that you think are ready to step forward and say, Dr. Z is right. I want to come in and work the polls.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we have a whole menu of positions. We have greeters, we have openers, we have closers, and we have positions which we call voting operation judges that work throughout the day. So if you're available in the morning and you would like to help us open and greet, great, we have a job for you. If you want to work after school, or maybe you're at work and you get out at 3 in the afternoon, you come in around 6, we have a position for you. Just ask, and we will
Well,
fit
don't
you in.
forget, the schools have the day off, so it's a great way to get the
True,
students
yes.
engaged
Yes, they
and
are.
get student service learning
They
hours
get
while they're
students,
doing
and
it.
it looks great on college transcripts. And I know we'll be back to talk about Future Vote and how students can really serve as volunteers from 6th grade all the way through 12th grade. It looks very good because you have the continuity of community service. Our goal is 1,000 17-year-olds to serve as election judges. It's doable.
And what a great way to instill a
Right.
very important habit of,
Yes.
of civic responsibility.
What is our typical turnout in a presidential?
The presidential mid-80s. We
In
have a
Montgomery
good
County.
we have a good turnout in Montgomery,
County.
Yes, unlike the previous election, the gubernatorial was bad, pathetic. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. But I think it's very important that individuals turn out to vote every single election, not just
Absolutely.
because it's a presidential. That okay, this is the election, and
Right.
you have a lot of voters that's arise every 4 years.
Yeah.
And if you live in a municipality, you have local elections on the odd years. So technically, if you live like City of Rockville, you could serve as an
You're-
election worker every single year.
Right.
And do you manage the Rockville city elections?
No,
as
we
well? That's
assist.
all?
We support assistance. We provide assistance for the City of Rockville.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
What's-
with, speaking of the education, every student succeeds, the Board of Education pieces of a general election are always important to primaries and generals
Yes.
if there are more.
Oh,
So
yes.
people need to vote all the way down the ballot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the special ballots. but I think it's key because it's a visceral experience of giving back. We tell individuals, we have a lot of individuals that serve our country in the military. But this is also a way of defending and flexing the Constitution for our local voters. You think what encompasses voting. There's countries around the world that voting is a life and death,
Exactly.
decision. So here, please, I really need individuals to participate. Short-term commitment, long-term impact. There is a stipend, so it's one of the few volunteer activities where you get a stipend.
Okay. Become rich.
No.
Feel good about
Gilberto.
what you do.
Exactly.
That's a great way to end this show. Thank you
Thank you.
all for joining me today, and thank all of you in the viewing audience for joining us for this week's edition of Montgomery Week in Review. I'm Don Mooers, and I invite you to join us again next week at this very same time.